He divorced his pregnant wife for his mistress, and the day he signed those papers, he had no idea she was the daughter of a man who could destroy him with one phone call. Stick with me while I share my story, and if it touches you, don't forget to support our channel by hitting that subscribe button, dropping a like, and sharing it with the people you care about. When Adam told me he wanted a divorce, I was 8 months pregnant and trying to hold myself together long enough to get through the day. He said he fell out of love, like our marriage was something he had accidentally misplaced. The words didn't make sense at first. We had planned a nursery together. We had picked out baby names. We had gone to appointments together. Or at least, I had gone to them while he made excuses about work. It wasn't until I saw the way he avoided eye contact that the truth clicked. There was someone else. I didn't want it to be true, but the pieces fell into place so fast it hurt. The late nights, the secretive texts, the sudden coldness. I didn't have to ask. His silence said everything. But hearing her name broke something inside me. Vanessa, a woman he met at a corporate retreat. A woman he described as refreshing and easy to talk to, as if carrying his child made me complicated. I found out they had been seeing each other for months, while he kissed me goodbye every morning and acted like we were still a family. Walking out of that courthouse felt like stepping out of a life I thought I understood and into cold, unfamiliar air. I remember holding the divorce papers against my belly, trying to protect my daughter from the stress tearing through me. I didn't cry in front of him. I didn't ask him why he threw us away. I didn't beg. I refused to give him the satisfaction. Adam looked almost relieved as he walked to his car with Vanessa waiting inside. She didn't even turn her head toward me. I guess she thought I was just the obstacle he had finally moved out of the way. Inside, though, a different fire started. I wasn't going down quietly, not after everything I had given to that marriage. I had spent years loving him, supporting him, making a home with him. I carried his child while he made plans with someone else. He thought pushing me out would be easy. He thought I would disappear into the background while he built a new life. But as I watched him drive away, something settled in me. It wasn't revenge, not yet. It was clarity. He had made his choice. Now I would make mine. I didn't know then how much his choices would cost him. I didn't know the secret Vanessa was keeping. I didn't know how small Adam's world would become once the truth came out. All I knew was that he underestimated me, badly. And that was going to be his first mistake. I went back to the house to pack the last of my things. It didn't feel like home anymore. Every picture on the wall, every folded blanket, every empty space on the shelf reminded me of a life that felt like it belonged to someone else. I tried to move quietly, hoping to be done before Adam came back, but of course things never go that easily. I heard the front door open, followed by voices. Adam wasn't alone. One of his friends, someone he used to bring over for barbecues, walked in with him. I stayed in the hallway, out of sight, thinking they would go into the living room. But they stopped right near the kitchen, close enough that every word reached me. Adam laughed, the kind of laugh I hadn't heard directed at me in months. Man, I'm telling you, I upgraded. Vanessa is nothing like Lauren. She's fun. She actually listens. She's different. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Upgraded. That word sat heavy in my chest, sharper than anything he'd said to my face. I didn't expect him to defend me, but hearing how easily he tossed our years together aside made something inside me crack. I stood there, holding a box half filled with baby clothes, and realized this man felt nothing for me. Not even basic respect. His friend sounded unsure, like he knew this wasn't something to brag about. But she's pregnant, Adam. Isn't this bad timing? Adam shrugged. She'll be fine. She's strong. She doesn't need me the way Vanessa does. That was when the memories started hitting me one after another. Him missing my ultrasound because he forgot. Him staying late at work 3 nights in a row and coming home smelling like cologne that wasn't mine. Him rolling over in bed when I tried to talk to him about the baby kicking for the first time. Him telling me I was too emotional, too sensitive, too much. All those signs I pushed aside now lined up perfectly. He didn't just fall out of love. He walked away long before he admitted it. I stayed quiet, gripping the edge of the box so tightly my knuckles hurt. I wanted to scream, confront him, throw the truth in his face. But instead, a strange calm settled over me. Not peace, just clarity. I finally saw him as he was, without excuses or hope softening the view. He wasn't a confused husband. He wasn't overwhelmed by the idea of fatherhood. He wasn't having a moment of weakness. He was selfish. He was cruel in small, quiet ways that I had learned to absorb. He had been choosing himself over us long before Vanessa came into the picture. And he was proud of it. That realization didn't fix the hurt, but it sharpened my mind. I didn't feel broken anymore. I felt awake. I finished packing without letting him know I heard anything. I walked past him with my bags, holding my head high. He didn't even notice. But that was fine. He didn't need to notice me now. He'd notice later, when everything he threw away came back to cost him more than he could handle. A week after I left the house, I had a routine hospital appointment. My pregnancy was already stressful enough, and I was trying to focus on staying calm for the baby. I checked in, sat down, and waited like I always did. Nothing felt unusual at first. Just the quiet hallway, the sound of nurses moving around, and the soft beeping of machines behind the closed doors. Then everything shifted. A group of men in dark suits entered the lobby. They weren't doctors or hospital staff. They looked like private security, serious faces, earpieces, the whole thing. They moved with a purpose, scanning the area before stepping aside, and that's when she walked in. Vanessa. For a second, I thought I was imagining it. She looked out of place in a hospital, wearing an expensive coat and heels, like she had just stepped out of a magazine. But it was definitely her. She didn't see me, and honestly, I preferred it that way. I didn't need a confrontation. I just watched quietly, unsure why she needed a security team for something as simple as an appointment. One of the nurses hurried toward her, already flustered. "Right this way, Miss Cole. We have your room prepared." The name hit me like a small shock. Miss Cole. I didn't know why it stood out, but something about the way the nurse said it, almost nervous, made me pay attention. The security guard stayed outside the exam room, as if she were someone important, someone whose safety mattered on a different level. I kept my head down, but my mind wouldn't stop spinning. Cole. Why did that sound familiar? During my appointment, I couldn't focus. The baby was fine, the doctor said, but my thoughts kept drifting back to the woman on the other side of the hallway. I didn't understand what I had just witnessed. Vanessa didn't act like someone sneaking around with a married man. She acted like someone used to a world where people opened doors for her without question. When I left the hospital, I didn't expect to see anything else, but fate wasn't done with me. As I stepped outside, I saw Vanessa again, this time getting into a black SUV. One of the guards opened the door for her like she was royalty. A man waiting nearby handed her a phone and addressed her with formal respect, not casual friendliness. It was clear she wasn't just someone Adam flirted with. She was someone powerful. Later that day, I mentioned the name Cole to my aunt. She looked up from her laptop immediately. Cole? As in Richard Cole? Cole Industrial Group? I didn't know who that was, so she pulled up a photo. The same last name. The same security detail standing behind him during interviews. A billionaire. One of the richest men in the country. Owner of multiple corporations. A man people either feared or respected, sometimes both. And Vanessa? His only daughter. I sat there stunned, trying to process it. Adam had left his pregnant wife for a woman he thought was an upgrade. But he had no clue she came from a family that could buy and sell his entire career with pocket change. It was almost unbelievable. Almost funny. For the first time since the divorce, the pain loosened its grip on my heart. Not because I thought Vanessa was better than me, no. But because I realized Adam had stepped into something he wasn't prepared for at all. He thought he was trading me in for a fantasy. He didn't know he had stepped into a world where he didn't even qualify to play. After realizing how serious Vanessa's family was, I knew I needed to get out of the city for a while. I reached out to my aunt who lived in Denver. We hadn't spoken much in the past few years, but she answered immediately, worried when she heard my voice. Without hesitation, she offered me a place to stay until I got back on my feet. It wasn't much, but it was safe, quiet, and a chance to breathe without Adam or Vanessa looming over me. The drive to Denver was long, but it gave me time to think. I kept replaying the last few months in my mind, noting every cruel word Adam had said, every time he missed an appointment or ignored me when I needed him. I thought about the late nights, the texts he tried to hide, the way he looked at Vanessa like she was everything he'd been missing. I realized I had to write it all down, not for anyone else, but for myself. To remember the truth, to make sure I didn't let him twist the story later. Once in Denver, I started small. I made lists, financial mistakes, the money he wasted while pretending to be generous, the things he lied about, and the constant emotional neglect. I included every detail I could remember. Days he ignored calls, weekends he spent working, but was really with Vanessa, the lies he told friends and family. It was painful, but also strangely freeing. Seeing everything on paper made me feel stronger. I could see his patterns clearly, and it wasn't hard to understand that this was who he really was. Meanwhile, I heard from a mutual friend that Adam's relationship with Vanessa was already showing cracks. He thought he had left me for a perfect life, but Vanessa had no interest in him beyond a passing fling. She treated him like someone temporary, someone to pass the time with while she focused on herself and her family. For the first time, I felt a sense of calm. He wasn't in control anymore. He had walked away from me thinking he was gaining everything, and yet he was losing without even realizing it. I started making plans for my own life. Simple things at first: decorating the small room my aunt had given me, taking walks, keeping up with my doctor appointments, preparing for the baby. But I also started thinking bigger. How I would protect my daughter, how I would secure my future, and how I could make sure Adam faced the consequences of his actions in ways he wouldn't expect. Living with my aunt reminded me of family I could rely on, people who valued me. The small moments of support and normalcy gave me courage I didn't realize I had. I was no longer just a betrayed wife. I was a woman building a foundation for her child and herself. Every detail I documented, every plan I made, every observation about Adam's behavior was another brick in that foundation. By the time I finished unpacking and writing, I realized I wasn't just surviving, I was preparing. Preparing to face what came next with clarity and strength, and to make sure Adam understood the mistake he had made when he chose his mistress over me. I had been settling into Denver, focusing on the baby and my own life, when I started hearing small whispers about Adam. It seemed Vanessa had finally told her father everything. I didn't need the details to feel satisfaction. Just knowing that the man who thought he was untouchable was about to face consequences gave me a quiet sense of relief. Richard Cole, it turns out, did not take kindly to Adam's betrayal. One of my old friends, who had connections to Cole Industrial Group, mentioned that Adam had been summoned to a private meeting at one of Richard's offices. From what I heard, it wasn't a casual talk. Adam had been called out in front of several high-level executives, who were shocked by his behavior. He was accused of lying, cheating, and abandoning a woman who deserved better. I imagined him sitting there, flustered, trying to explain himself, fumbling over excuses that sounded hollow. Richard Cole apparently called him a weak man with no integrity, and my chest tightened with satisfaction just picturing it. The man who had thought he could charm his way into a luxurious life without effort was being stripped of respect in a room full of people he wanted to impress. It didn't stop there. Adam had been working on a project with Cole Industrial Group for months, a project he had bragged about endlessly, as if his future depended on it. I heard that after the meeting, he was fired. The project was taken away, and Adam was left with nothing except the empty confidence he had once flaunted. He had wanted to play in a world he didn't belong to, and now he was being shown the door. Even more, Vanessa was pulling away. She had realized the reality of Adam's character, and she wasn't interested in maintaining a relationship with someone who had abandoned a pregnant wife. She called him a mistake, cutting him off completely. For the first time, Adam's world began shrinking, and there was no one to defend him. No one who would blindly side with him. I didn't need to gloat, and I didn't. It was enough to watch from a distance as the universe started correcting itself. Adam had spent years thinking he could take what he wanted without consequence. He had counted on Vanessa to be a trophy, on me to disappear, and on the world to reward him for selfishness. Instead, he was losing everything that mattered to him, one by one. It was strange, the peace I felt. I wasn't celebrating his misery exactly. I was celebrating justice, the natural result of his actions finally catching up with him. My life, though still in pieces, was moving forward. I had a roof over my head, family supporting me, and a child growing inside me who deserved a mother who fought for her. Adam, on the other hand, was learning the hard way that choices have consequences. And in this case, every lie, every betrayal, every cold action he had taken was returning to him, stronger than he could handle. Karma, it seemed, had finally begun to unfold. Living with my aunt gave me the stability I desperately needed, and she noticed how tense I still was whenever Adam crossed my mind. One afternoon, she asked if I had considered speaking to a lawyer. I had thought about it, but didn't know where to start. She nodded knowingly and said she knew someone, a top attorney in Denver who had a reputation for taking difficult cases and fighting for justice. She made a few calls, and within a week, I had a meeting scheduled. The attorney, Claire Thompson, was everything my aunt had promised. She listened carefully as I recounted every detail of Adam's actions. The lies, the cheating, the neglect, and the way he abandoned me during the pregnancy. She asked questions I hadn't thought to document, and I realized how much I had actually written down over the past weeks. Claire said she would take my case pro bono because she believed strongly in protecting women in situations like mine. We started building a file. I handed over copies of texts, emails, and financial documents that showed Adam's lies and his abandonment. We documented every missed appointment, every expense he refused to contribute to, every instance where he prioritized Vanessa over me. It was painstaking to go through it all, but each piece felt like a shield, a way to protect my daughter and myself from being hurt further. Once we had everything ready, we filed for spousal support, child support, and sued for marital abandonment. For the first time since the divorce started, I felt a sense of control. I wasn't waiting for Adam to act or hoping he would come around. I was actively protecting my life and my child's future, making sure he couldn't simply walk away and leave me with nothing. The response from Adam was immediate. He panicked when he realized the extent of the legal action. Suddenly, the house he thought he would keep effortlessly, the money he assumed would flow to him freely, and the reputation he had worked so hard to maintain were all at risk. I heard through mutual contacts that he was calling lawyers, scrambling for evidence, and trying to find ways to reduce the damage. But this time, it didn't scare me. I was no longer the woman waiting for Adam to decide my worth. I had prepared, I had support, and I had justice on my side. The court case was more than legal action. It was a declaration that I wouldn't allow him to control or hurt me anymore. Every day, as I reviewed documents with Claire or organized evidence, I felt a little stronger. The fear and heartbreak from the past months started to turn into something new, confidence and determination. I realized that this legal battle wasn't just about money or property. It was about proving that Adam's choices had consequences. And for the first time, I could see a future where he wouldn't have the power to hurt me again. Where I could provide for my daughter without relying on someone who had once betrayed me. Where I could finally step into the life I deserved, one that Adam had foolishly thrown away. The day I went into labor, I felt a mix of fear and excitement unlike anything I had ever experienced. Every contraction reminded me that soon I would meet the little life I had been carrying for 9 months. My aunt stayed by my side the entire time, holding my hand, offering words of encouragement, and keeping me focused on the moment rather than the months of pain that had brought me here. Hours later, after what felt like an eternity, I finally heard her first cries. Ella, my daughter, tiny and perfect, with her little fists curled and her eyes blinking at the world for the first time. Holding her in my arms, I felt a strength I hadn't known I had. Everything Adam had done, the lies, the betrayal, the heartbreak, felt smaller in comparison to this moment. I had created life, and no one could take that from me. I didn't expect Adam to show up, but of course he did. He arrived at the hospital, looking nervous, as if showing concern could fix months of mistakes. A nurse stopped him before he reached me and told him politely but firmly that he couldn't enter. Security, hired by Richard Cole himself, had been instructed to block him. I later learned that Vanessa had insisted on it. She didn't want him involved in any part of our lives anymore. I watched from the doorway as Adam lingered outside, desperate and flustered. He knocked, called out my name, tried to plead, but no one listened. I didn't feel the need to intervene. This was the natural result of his own actions. He had thought he could leave a pregnant woman without consequences, but now he was helpless, powerless to change anything. When he returned home that night, everything was already falling apart. His bank account, once full from my support and his own investments, had been frozen due to the pending lawsuit I had filed for spousal and child support. The project he had been counting on for months had fallen through, leaving him without the career boost he had expected from Vanessa's connections. And Vanessa herself had cut him off completely. She no longer returned his calls, and it was clear she considered him a mistake she wanted nothing to do with. I heard from a neighbor that he had been calling friends, trying to explain himself, but no one would take his side. The people he had once relied on for advice or support now avoided him. The reality of his choices was hitting him all at once, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. Meanwhile, I sat in my hospital room with Ella wrapped in a soft blanket, her tiny fingers clutching mine. I didn't need Adam's apologies, his staged concern, or his presence. What mattered was my daughter, her future, and the life we would build together. In that moment, I realized something important. Adam could lose everything else, but he could never take away this. The betrayal, the heartbreak, the cruelty, it was all behind us. Ahead of us was a life of our own, stronger and brighter than anything he could ever touch. And that knowledge gave me a quiet, unshakable peace. A few weeks after Ella was born, I received an unexpected message. Vanessa wanted to meet. I wasn't sure if I should go. Anger, hurt, and disbelief were still fresh, but curiosity won. I needed to hear what she had to say for myself. We met at a quiet cafe, far from anyone who might recognize us. She arrived looking nervous, almost vulnerable in a way I hadn't seen before. She didn't try to act superior, didn't make excuses, and didn't even smile. She simply said, "Lauren, I owe you an apology." I stayed quiet, listening. My heart still ached from what Adam had done, but I wanted to understand her side. Vanessa explained that she had never known Adam was married. She didn't know I was pregnant. The affair had been built on lies, but the lies were mostly his. The realization hit her hard once she found out, and she ended things immediately. She said she didn't want any part of his games, and she never wanted to hurt me. Hearing her speak, I could see she was genuine. Her eyes didn't look away. She wasn't trying to make me forgive Adam, and she didn't ask me to. She only wanted me to know the truth as she understood it. Then she told me something that made me pause. Her father, Richard Cole, was furious about Adam's behavior. He saw how selfish and reckless he had been, and he wasn't going to let him escape without consequences. Vanessa explained that her father intended to ensure Adam was professionally blacklisted in every business circle he had tried to enter with her connections. She emphasized that Adam had underestimated the power of the world he had tried to step into, and now he would face the fallout in full. For the first time in months, I felt a sense of being seen. Not just as Adam's victim, but as a person whose life and dignity mattered. Vanessa wasn't offering me money, revenge, or favors. She was offering truth, clarity, and an alliance I hadn't expected. She had chosen to side with reality, with honesty, and with justice, even if it didn't affect her directly. We sat there for a while longer, talking quietly about the events, about Adam's downfall, and about the ways we could both move forward. There was no hostility in her words, no pride or arrogance, just acknowledgement of the situation and respect for the life I was building for myself and Ella. Walking away from that meeting, I felt lighter. For the first time, I wasn't carrying the weight of betrayal alone. Someone else had recognized the wrong done to me and had taken a stand, even indirectly, on my behalf. I realized that this unexpected alliance, built on truth and honesty, was more powerful than anger or revenge. Adam had believed he could manipulate everyone around him, but now I had clarity, support, and a newfound strength. The realization that I wasn't invisible, that my pain mattered, and that the consequences of Adam's actions were unavoidable, gave me a quiet confidence I hadn't felt before. In that moment, I knew I was no longer just surviving, I was starting to rise. And this time, I would rise fully prepared. The news came quickly. Adam had lost his job entirely. The company he had been working for, one he had bragged about endlessly, terminated him after hearing about his personal and professional misconduct. His professional licenses, which he had depended on to maintain his career, were suspended pending review. For the first time, the man who had always acted untouchable had nothing. He was forced to leave the apartment he had rented while with Vanessa and move into a small, cramped unit on the outskirts of the city. No friends, no colleagues, no one to rescue him. It was a humbling fall from the life he thought he had earned, and I couldn't help but feel the quiet satisfaction of justice taking its course. Meanwhile, my own life had taken a very different turn. The court proceedings moved swiftly, guided by the evidence Claire and I had compiled. Every detail of Adam's lies, his infidelity, and his abandonment during my pregnancy had been documented thoroughly. The judge granted me full custody of Ella and awarded a significant support package, ensuring that Adam could no longer avoid responsibility for the child he had helped bring into this world. The day of the final hearing, I arrived early, holding Ella in my arms. She slept quietly, oblivious to the tension in the courtroom. Adam entered later, trying to appear calm, but the lines of stress on his face betrayed him. He avoided my eyes, glancing at his lawyer as if expecting some miracle to save him. When the judge addressed Adam, it was clear he had no patience for excuses. He spoke firmly about the cruelty of abandoning a pregnant wife, the irresponsibility of leaving a child without support, and the moral failures that Adam had shown throughout the process. The words stung, But it was nothing compared to the life lesson Adam was learning. Actions have consequences, and he could no longer manipulate the narrative in his favor. Adam tried to speak, to apologize, to explain. I watched quietly, holding Ella close. His words sounded hollow, rehearsed, and empty. Finally, I looked at him, my voice calm but firm, and said exactly what I had felt for months. "You don't get to hurt us twice." The room went silent. I didn't need to say more. The judge had already made his decision. The law had already acted, and Adam's life was now a reflection of the choices he had made. He had lost his job, his career, his relationship with Vanessa, and now his role in his child's life was strictly limited by the law. As I left the courtroom, I felt an unusual mix of relief and strength. Ella was safe, my future was protected, and Adam had finally learned the full weight of his mistakes. The betrayal and heartbreak that had haunted me for months were slowly being replaced by something far more powerful: certainty, justice, and the knowledge that I had reclaimed control over my life. For the first time in a long while, I felt free. Free from fear, free from manipulation, and free to build a life for Ella and myself without him ever having the power to hurt us again. After the court case ended, I finally felt like I could breathe again. The weight of Adam's betrayal, the months of fear and heartbreak, and the constant stress of the pregnancy were slowly lifting. I found a modest home, small but warm, that I could call my own. It wasn't grand, but it was safe, and it was ours, mine and Ella's. Moving in and setting up the nursery was the first real step toward rebuilding my life. I unpacked boxes slowly, arranging things with care, each item a small declaration that we were starting fresh. Ella's laughter and curiosity filled the rooms, reminding me daily that life goes on, and that joy can grow even after pain. A few weeks later, I received an unexpected letter. It was from Richard Cole. He wrote privately, acknowledging everything that had happened and wishing Ella and me well. He said that people like me, strong, determined, and unwilling to let injustice define their lives, deserve protection and respect. Reading his words, I felt recognized in a way I hadn't for a long time. It wasn't about money or favors. It was acknowledgement that the right choices, courage, and resilience mattered, and that they were noticed. I spent quiet evenings reflecting on everything that had happened. I thought about Adam, the man who traded loyalty, love, and trust for lust and a fleeting fantasy. He had lost everything: his job, his reputation, his career prospects, and even the relationship he had tried to build with Vanessa. And yet, for all his failures, I had gained something far more valuable. I had peace, a supportive family, and a life built on honesty, integrity, and the promise of a future I could shape myself. Rebuilding wasn't easy. There were still moments of doubt, sleepless nights, and days when I felt exhausted. But each small victory, the way Ella smiled at me, the way I could make decisions freely, the confidence I felt handling every challenge, reminded me that I was stronger than I had realized. I wasn't just surviving. I was thriving. I realized something important. Revenge doesn't always have to look like anger or punishment. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's the act of standing up, reclaiming your life, and proving that the betrayal didn't break you. Every choice I made for Ella and myself was a statement of that kind of revenge. Looking back, I understood my own power. The pain, the heartbreak, and the betrayal had been lessons, harsh but necessary. I had faced them, endured them, and come out on the other side. Adam may have thought he could hurt me and escape the consequences, but the truth was far stronger than his lies. I whispered to myself, holding Ella close one evening. Never underestimate a woman who rebuilds herself while carrying a child. Her revenge is her comeback. And in that moment, surrounded by the quiet of our home, I felt it fully. I was free. I was strong. And we were finally safe.